There comes a moment when heaven's silence weighs heavier than any word, when faith is not a feeling, but the fire that keeps a man standing, when God himself seems to break his heart. Abraham knew that fire. He was not a warrior, not a king, not a prophet crowned in glory. He was simply a man called by a voice that asked for everything and promised eternity in return. He left home with nothing but belief. No map, no proof, only a word from the unseen, and somehow that was enough. Years turned to decades. Hope grew thin. The cradle stayed empty, and every sunset whispered the same ache. Where is the promise? Yet Abraham did not let go. He built altars in the wilderness. He called deserts holy ground. He spoke to a silent sky as though heaven still listened. And one day, it did. The impossible happened. Sarah laughed, and from her laughter came life, a son, Isaac, the child of promise, the proof that faith is not a myth, but a seed. From that day forward, Abraham's tent was filled with joy. He watched the boy grow strong. He watched Sarah's smile return. He held in his arms the reason he had waited so long, and the reason he would never doubt again. But faith that rests too long begins to forget how to walk, and heaven, in its wisdom, does not let faith grow comfortable. Then came the morning, quiet, windless, heavy, the dawn of a test that would echo through eternity. The voice spoke again, the same voice that gave the promise. Now called for it back. Abraham, here I am. Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and offer him to me. The words shattered the silence of peace, the heart that had believed through. Waiting now faced believing through breaking. There was no explanation, no warning, no promise of rescue, only the command and the choice to trust the God who gave everything, even when he asked for everything in return. That morning, Abraham rose before the sun. He split the wood with trembling hands. He called Isaac by name, his voice steady, though his heart screamed. Every sound of the axe, every tightening of rope, every breath he took was worship, raw, bleeding, absolute. This was no ritual. This was surrender. And as the mountain of Moriah waited in the distance, so did destiny. For what was about to happen there would not only test one man's faith, it would foreshadow the greatest act of love the world would ever know. The Father who would not withhold his Son, the Son who would not resist the altar, the God who would not forget the promise long ago. Before kingdoms had names, before empires rose and fell, there was only the voice of the eternal, and one man who dared to answer it. His name was Abraham, a wanderer among stones and sand, a stranger in every land, yet chosen not for his strength, but for his faith. He had heard the impossible, that through him nations would rise, stars would become suns, and heaven would find a home on earth. And in the twilight of his years, when hope had withered and laughter had died, the promise came to life, a son named Isaac. He was the joy of two old hearts, the laughter of tents once filled with silence. To look at Isaac was to see the fingerprint of God himself, and Abraham believed the story was complete. But the author was not done. For faith, untested, is only a whisper, and love unproven is only a word. Then came the dawn that split his soul. The voice returned, the same voice that called him out of Ur, that counted his faith as righteousness. Now it spoke the unthinkable. Abraham, here I am, he said. Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac. Go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering. The words fell like thunder, the promise asked for in sacrifice, the future placed on the altar of obedience. No answer came from heaven. No angel interrupted the silence. Only a man, torn between promise and command, choosing faith over reason. At dawn, he rose, he split the wood, he saddled the donkey, and with 2 servants and his son, he began the longest walk a father has ever taken. 3 days. 3 nights, each step another nail through the heart of understanding. The mountain rose in the distance, the mountain of testing. And when they arrived at its foot, Abraham turned to his servants and said, "Stay here. The boy and I will go and worship, and we will return." Even now, he believed, even as the storm raged within. He clung to a hope unseen, that the God who gives life could raise it again. Isaac carried the wood on his back, the same way another son would one day carry his cross. Abraham held the fire and the knife, the tools of obedience, the symbols of surrender. "Father," the boy asked softly, "the fire and wood are here, but where is the lamb?" And Abraham's voice broke like the sky before rain. "My son, God himself will provide the lamb." They reached the place. Stone by stone, Abraham built the altar, every rock a remembrance of the promise, every placement a whisper of pain. He arranged the wood, he bound his son, and Isaac, silent as a lamb, looked up with eyes that trusted more than he understood. He laid him on the altar, the promise bound upon obedience, and as the knife rose toward heaven, time itself seemed to hold its breath. Faith met fire, obedience met destiny. Heaven watched, then a cry like thunder. "Abraham, Ibrahim, here I am," he gasped. "Do not lay your hand on the boy." And Abraham lifted his eyes, and there, tangled in the thicket, was a ram, the provision, the substitute, the mercy that had been waiting all along. Tears fell as laughter returned, not the laughter of birth, but of redemption. And on that mountain Abraham named the place Yahweh Yireh. The Lord will provide. He untied his son. Together they worshipped, and the promise lived. But something eternal had shifted that day. The test was never about Isaac. It was about the heart of faith itself. Would a man trust God even when God's command seemed to destroy the very promise he gave? Abraham had answered. He had proven that faith is not blind. It sees beyond. It believes when sight fails. It loves when reason breaks. And heaven sealed his obedience with an oath. "Because you have not withheld your son, your only son, I will bless you. And through your seed all nations shall be blessed." That seed would one day walk another mountain, carrying another wood as another father watched. His only son become the lamb. Moriah would become Calvary. The ram would become the Redeemer, and the altar of testing would become the cross of salvation. Abraham walked down that mountain a changed man, the knife no longer heavy, the fire no longer burning in despair, but glowing with revelation that the love of God asks for all, but gives back more than we can lose. His steps echoed in eternity. His faith written in the language of heaven. He was not just a father of Isaac, he became the father of all who believe. And from the ashes of surrender, God built the story of redemption, because on that mountain, faith rewrote destiny, and love, divine, unyielding, eternal, proved that the promise of Godis never buried, only tested. Would you like me to form? And so it was written, that on a mountain of fire and faith, a father's surrender became humanity's hope. From that day, every act of trust, every prayer whispered in darkness, every heart that dares to believe the unseen walks in the shadow of Abraham's steps, because faith did not end on that altar. It began there, and the same God who provided then still provides now. The same voice that called him still calls us. To trust beyond fear, to obey beyond reason, to love beyond understanding, for in every test there waits a promise, and on every mountain the Lord still provides. This is the story of the test that changed eternity, the story of a father, a son, and a God who never breaks his promise. Abraham and Isaac, the test of the promise, faith proven forever.